just had this steel intercooler pipe dropped off. We're supposed to replace this blow-off valve flange with this aluminum one. Obviously we can't weld the two together, so we're just going to remake everything out of aluminum, and I figured this would give me an opportunity to show you a couple of my new favorite tools. Okay, so fabrication rule number one when building intercooler piping is you never want to actually have a coupler on a bend. It doesn't seal very well, and more importantly, it's super easy for it to blow off. So like this end, usually try and have at least a couple inches of straight tubing. So with this tube, we'll cut one end similar, and then the other end we'll end up using part of this to duplicate this, but with some straight tubing on the edge. So in doing that, we'll need to make 3 or 4 cuts or whatever it is on this tube. And we're going to show you how easy life becomes when we use the Sequence Manufacturing straight tubing cutting jig and the Sequence Manufacturing elbow cutting jig. Generally, trying to clamp aluminum into a horizontal saw, you a lot of times can squeeze and damage the tubing, and usually you end up scratching the tubing to all hell. And then if you do it through a vertical saw, again, you're pushing it through the table, you're going to scratch it all up, and your cut's not going to be very straight. And then cutting aluminum on a chop saw is just torture. So with that being said, let me show you how all this works. Alright, so this is basically 90 degrees. So make a cut here. And our bend stops right about here. So make another cut right here. And I'll make another cut right here. Obviously you can't see what I did. So basically what I'm going to do on this tube is cut it somewhere into the bend here, and then use a small portion of the bend on this one to essentially duplicate it, but give a straight leg at the end so we can bead roll that. So let's use these tools and cut it up. Alright, we're going to start with the straight cutting jig. Just a couple of things worth noting is this blade is totally worn out, so it might not cut all of that clean. You might see it maybe jumping around a little bit. It's not the tool, it's the blade. And then this is a prototype version, so there's actually been some revisions to the plate here. Actually, I think I have a production version. Let me show you. Alright, so here's the box it comes in. It's super nice. I'm not using this one because I was going to take some pictures of it before I scratch it up. But yeah, the plate does a much better job squaring itself up on this one. So again, just keep that in mind as you watch this. Let's go cut something. Alright, so our tube is marked right here, so here's where we're going to make our first cut, and we're going to clamp this portion of the tube into the tool. So the only thing that's touching anything is a part that we're going to throw away anyway, so we don't have to worry about scratching anything. Now that I think about it, I guess it makes sense to use the production one for the video, and maybe we can just do a giveaway on the prototype. So if you want it, comment below, let me know. Alright, we're going to start off making our cut right here on our mark. So this section of tubing here is too short to clamp into the saw by itself, even if we were to put another piece of tubing on the backside. With this tool, when you're cutting short pieces, you can 9 times out of 10 you can get by without having to put any tubing on the back, but it does help square it up. So if you have an extra piece of tubing around, you can set it in the tool. We're just going to do that for this, just again so it squares it up a little bit nicer. So you just set the tube into the tool, line it up, tighten the vise, and you can see I just clamped it down nice and tight. and I didn't try and deform the tube. Being that it's so close to the end of the tube, it would have totally deformed it if it was long enough to go into the saw vise. Now we'll start the cut. And to do that cut previously, it would have required tack welding another piece of tubing to this, and that's just a total pain. Now we'll do the other side, which is probably about half the distance of the other one. This won't even make it to the vise in the saw, so this would absolutely require tack welding or doing something else. This tool is actually designed for just cutting straight titanium tubing, which can be really difficult, especially as the diameter of the tube goes up. And then I've just found that the more I play with it, the more uses I find for it, like not scratching up this aluminum tubing makes it really nice. And it's an inch of it or so is in there, and it's clamped down really nice. It's not going anywhere, and this saw is a piece of garbage too, so that doesn't help. And then for the piece on the back side, like the less you have in, the better. So as you cut shorter pieces here, you'd want to move this further back, but you don't. Maybe on a piece this short, you probably would want this, but if we had a little bit more in here, then this back piece isn't even necessary. All right, we can go ahead and make this cut. Hold the tube just so it doesn't fall once you're done with the cut. Now, something to keep in mind, like watching this, is I'm trying to do it and talk, and the camera's in the way and everything else. If I was just doing this without any cameras, both of those cuts would have been made. The setup time would have been half the time of the cut time. So this thing's really awesome. And again, we're using the straight cutting fixture for this video for something it totally wasn't designed for. It just happens to be one of the 100 different uses that I found for it. Let's try the elbow jig and see what we can do with this. A little easier just to set everything up on the table. If it's already out of the saw. And in this case, there was a little bit of straight tubing on the bend, so positioning it is a little easier on the table. And like that, it's ready to cut. Ready? Mark the other cut at about 22 degrees. Carefully put it in the saw. Square it up. And we'll start the last cut. Now if this was steel or something, I didn't really necessarily care if it was going to fall on the floor, then there wouldn't even be a need to hold it. So you can just start your cut and walk away. UPS is here with more prototype tools to try out. Fitment's good there, so we'll weld it up real quick, throw a couple bead rolls on the ends, and tack weld the flange on it and call it good. Alright, so that basically sums it up. Pretty quick, easy little intercooler pipe here. This flange is just very lightly tack welded on as it's a tight fit and the car's not here, so it's going to get test fit before we weld it. So basically, the Sequence Manufacturing Ticon Industries straight tubing cutting jig was designed for cutting straight titanium, and obviously it does an amazing job at that. But little tasks like this intercooler pipe, for example, was able to make all of the cuts needed between the tools without the actual tubing ever touching the actual saw table. So you don't have to deal with scratches and things of that nature. I didn't have to tack weld anything together in order to be able to clamp it down in the vise and weld it. The small ends that I was clamping down didn't get deformed and out of round. So the primary way that this works is you're pinching, with the normal vise, you're pinching from two sides. But with this, you're pinching 4 places. So it can't just pancake like the normal saw vise would. And then the elbow cutting jig. This is probably the best tool that I've gotten or used in years. I can't say enough good things about this. If you don't have one, you are absolutely wasting time, money, material. This thing can cut really small pieces of an elbow. You're going to cut on the tangent of the bend every single time. Probably pay for itself in the first couple of months, just the amount of money that you're going to save on belt sanding belts. Because before, a piece would be too small to cut. You needed to take a few degrees out of it or whatever, and the belt sander would be the best option. You'd sand it, sit there, heat it up like crazy, melt your fingers off, shoot it into the wall when it goes flying out of your hand. Now you can just take off very tiny pieces with this. And you can also sit and duplicate the same cut 50 times in a row if you need to. And then I didn't use it for this video, but also have a straight cutting jig for the larger diameter straight tubing. And UPS just dropped off a prototype for the elbows, for the large diameter elbows. So I think we're going to go up to 5-inch on that. You can buy all of these tools at either sequencemanufacturing.com or ticonindustries.com, and I'll put links in the description below to each. And I'm sure I'll make more videos using these tools because they are very helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.